Danny Segura for MMAJunkie.com. I'm here with Vicente Luque, who will be fighting Niko Price at UFC 249 in Jacksonville, Florida. Vicente, how are you?
Hey, how are you, man? I'm doing great and ready to go.
So, a lot to talk about here. You got an interesting fight coming up with Niko Price. It's a rematch. Um, First of all, how have you sort of managed things for this camp? Because it's interesting times, and there's a lot of businesses that have closed, right? Non-essential businesses, social distancing measures. How have you ran things for preparations for UFC 249?
Yeah, it's a hard moment for everyone. So I've been working, in the best way I can. All my coaches and strength and conditioning coach, they have sent me programs so I could do at home and stay safe. I also go to the streets, run a lot, so I make sure I'm away from everyone and just do some sprints. That's keeping my cardio up there, and I'm making sure that I'm going to be ready for this fight. At the same time, everybody's going through the same situation, so I think fight night, it's gonna be fair. Everybody's gonna be there in the same conditions.
Hmm. And are you in Florida?
No, right now I'm in Brazil.
Okay. So
Yeah,
when are you gonna fly out to Florida?
next week, probably Tuesday, I think so.
Okay, nice. So for this camp, you didn't work with the guys over at Sanford MMA, right?
I worked a little bit, so I was there for about a week. That maybe 2 weeks ago, I went there when I had the possibility to fight April 18. Then that got canceled, so I came back to Brazil to be with my family, to just be with them, take care of them. But I was keeping myself ready for the call, so I got the date May 9. It made sense for me, and I got this fight. And whenever I'm training in Brazil, I feel confident. Also, here we have a great team, and at this moment we cannot really count so much on the team, so we just work
Hmm.
what I can do here at home, and my coaches are telling me what to do, how I should be working.
Yeah. Does that bring extra nerves into the fight, knowing that like your preparation is usually not the way you do it, and you're kind of I mean you kind of don't know how you're gonna perform come fight night.
It does. It's a different aspect. It's definitely different. It's not a normal camp, but at the same time, I know I'm doing my best. I'm doing everything I can to be ready. And fight night, I always go all in. I'm the kind of guy that goes there to fight, and that's what I'm gonna do. So, regardless, I'm gonna have fun and I'm gonna have a good night. So that's the main thing.
Yeah. And do you have as far as do you feel much better, fighting under these conditions because the UFC has now, paired up with the Florida Athletic Commission, and they're sort of going that route rather than the previous UFC 249 booking. It was supposed to take in Indian reservation, and they were going to sort of self-regulate as they do internationally. Do you feel much better within this climate knowing that the UFC has sort of paired up with an athletic commission to run the event?
Yeah, I think that's positive. That's always good. But at the same time, I trust the UFC a lot. I know that they are always taking care of their fighters. So whatever they will do, I know it's going to be for the best of us. That we go out there and do and put on the show. So they always are taking care of us. So regardless, I have confidence on them. But if we have a commission that is going to be, taking care of everything, that's even better. So
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. Have they give you any details on how sort of the testing is going to work for COVID-19?
Not any detail right now, but when I was going to fight April 18,
Hmm.
they already were talking to us that we were going to be tested, I think, couple of days before we went out there. So I'm not sure how it's going to work now, if we're going to be tested before and when we get there. But I know that they're making sure that they're going to have us all tested, and everybody's going to, be we're going to be safe and clean over there.
Yeah. And it's been a minute since you fought. I believe the last time you fought was at UFC 244, if I'm not mistaken, in November.
Yep, that's it. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And in that fight, unfortunately, you lost to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and you had sort of a very sober assessment of where you were at, and you kind of wanted to sort of take things slow and work on some aspects of your game. I'm curious, have you gotten time to do that? And if so, what are some of the things that you've worked on since that defeat to Wonderboy Thompson?
Yeah, I definitely had some good time. the rest of November and December, I took some time off to rest my body. Yeah, I had a busy year last year, had 4 fights, so I needed that rest. And then all of February, January, April, March, I've been working a lot and just improving a lot. I feel like I am definitely a different fighter now, and not only the mistakes I made in that fight, but also I saw that I have to change. Especially I fought 4 times last year, and I watched those 4 fights, and I wasn't so different from one to the other. So that's
Mhm.
guys can read me if I'm always doing kind of the same things. So I needed to add to that. I'm not gonna stop doing what I'm good at, but I want to add new things, and that's what I've been working on. Also, I put on some boxing. Boxing is great, and I've been doing a lot of work with a boxing coach, so that has improved a lot. Get some hand speed. I think that's always good.
Hmm, interesting. So you kind of felt like your game maybe became a little bit predictable over time?
Yeah, definitely, and especially at the high level, when you fight somebody like Thompson, he's studying fights and he's
Yeah.
watching every single mistake I can make, so he can capitalize on that. So at this level, I think we need to change and we need to evolve every single fight. And I felt like maybe that's something that I didn't do so much last year. I wanted to have a high pace of fights. I wanted to have many
Mhm.
fights, but that didn't give me time to look at myself. I was always looking at my next opponent. What's he gonna do? How do I have to fight him? And I forgot a little bit about myself, and that's what I did this time. Look back to me. How can I grow? How can I become a better fighter?
Hmm. Interesting. And here with Niko Price, it's an interesting fight. It's a rematch. The first time you guys fought was back in 2017, and you submitted him with a Darce choke, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I'm curious. Do you sort of find this matchup as sort of, and this opponent specifically, as the ideal opponent to fight under this sort of pandemic? Because for one, you already studied him, and you know you can beat him because you've defeated him, and second, he's mainly a striker, which for preparations with social distancing and all that, I would assume it'd be much easier to sort of keep your striking sharp rather than a jujitsu guy where you actually need that rolling partner to prepare for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, striking is much easier to train at this moment than grappling, and that's a good thing. That's a positive change, from opponent. But at the same time, I was just ready to fight. So whoever it was, I was gonna fight because I'm ready. I'm feeling good. I want to go out there and perform. So Niko Price made sense. He's a great fighter. He's aggressive. He's coming off a great win against James Vick.
Hmm.
So for the fans, I know that this is going to be a great fight. It's going to be an exciting fight. Both of us are aggressive. So, that all of this made sense for me. And plan wise, I mean, I'm definitely not looking at him as the same Niko Price I beat almost 3 years ago. He had a
Yeah.
lot of time to evolve. I've changed a lot. So I'm looking at this as a new fight, as a new opponent, and I'm going to go out there and do my best.
Yeah. Where do you think maybe there's some areas where he's improved or now looks different than the Nico Price you fought in 2017?
I think he's more experienced and a little bit more aggressive. So the aggressiveness can be good and bad for him. So if I can capitalize on that, I will try. Maybe put some counters in there. I see that he really wants to put pressure on his opponents, and I believe he's going to try to do the same with me. And overall, I think he has gained a lot of experience. So now he knows how to pace himself a little bit and get some good comebacks, especially like I haven't seen many people knock people out when they are in the bottom, and
Yeah.
Nico has done that twice. So he's a dangerous guy. We cannot sleep on him.
Yeah, for sure. And this fight obviously is one that the fans are very excited for. I mean, you bring a lot of action, so does he, as you mentioned. But where do you think this win will, if you do defeat Nico Price, where do you think it'll put you in the division? Do you think you'll be right up there and be ready to challenge and take those sort of top five opponents like the Wonder Boy Thompson, or would this time around would you like to sort of pace yourself and take some time before you take the top dogs?
I mean, right now it's a hard time with everything else that is going on, with the virus and everything. So I think a win over Price puts me back in the winning column, so back to where I was before I fought Thompson. And from there on, I have to see how things are going to work out, how fights are going to go, if we're going to get to fight in the island, or how everything goes back. But I definitely, after getting back to the wins way, I want to keep on fighting and keep getting up there. My goal is to get all the way up to the title. So I gotta get tough opponents. I think Nick was a tough opponent for me to come back against. And after that, I want somebody, that has a big name and go out there and fight again, big guys.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned the Fight Island there. That's been a hot topic as of recent. Do you have any insight on that? Anything you can tell us? Because we've been kind of left in the dark. All we know is that there's an island somewhere, and apparently there's going to be fights there.
Yeah, that's the same thing I know, and I'm excited for it. I hope it's true. I hope it's real, and whenever it's ready, I would love to go out there and fight. I think that's, and even after all everything finishes of the virus, everybody is safe, and we can go out again. I think it makes sense to have that island and have big events over there and have maybe two
Yeah.
cards a year. I think it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, certainly. I was watching Bruce Lee's, I believe, Enter the Dragon, where they have the tournament in the island, and it just reminded me of this whole thing, which is very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and lastly, you mentioned how you were kind of, your game was sort of becoming predictable, and also the amount of fights that you had last year, they were, it was quite many. And do you think you're going to go back to that, like, or do you want to sort of pace yourself and take fewer fights moving forward? Like, how are you going to manage your career moving forward?
Yeah, I think 4 fights a year does is not something realistic from now on. I definitely
Mhm.
want to get good fights and have some time to work myself and get ready for that specific fight. But I'm not the kind of guy that can do less than 2 fights a year. I'm pushing for 3 this year, even with everything that's going on. I'm gonna try to put in 3 fights, and it's hard because I got to balance between taking some good time for me to grow, evolve after every single fight, but also keep myself active. I'm always performing better when I'm active. I like to compete, so I think 3 fights a year that makes sense. I could have 3 great camps, rest my body up, and not overdo it. 3 fights a year makes sense for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you're much of a predictions guy, but the first time you fought Nico, you finished him via Darce. What are you feeling this time? Do you think you'll take things to the ground or keep things standing? How do you think the fight will go down?
It's hard to call, but I definitely see a finish, be it knockout or submission. We're two aggressive guys. He's gonna push the pace. I'm gonna push the pace. So whenever I see an opening, I will take it, and I think it's gonna be a finish. I don't know how, submission or knockout, one of the two, but it's gonna happen.
No, I lied there. Now I promise this is the last question. But this kind of just came up. You mentioned how he's very dangerous from his back as far as striking wise, which is something that's very bizarre. Usually we don't see people finishing other fighters from their back. But you sort of mentioned that, and you've gone to the ground with him after seeing him, put out James Vick and other fighters from his back. How do you approach that? Do you keep that into consideration when you prepared to fight him, in the sense of maybe be a little bit more careful before diving in there if you do get him down to the ground?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I cannot relax. Whenever I'm on top of him, I gotta make sure that I have a good guard, that I'm looking and not just gonna stand up and try to ground and pound him without preparing myself and being ready to get hit. He's an awkward guy. He tries to hit you from any position. So I definitely take that in consideration, and just be aware. It's not something that I'm gonna change my game and not do the ground game because of that, but I'm definitely going to be aware of it.
Yeah. All right, Luque. Well, it's going to be a fantastic fight. I think it can't go any other way, but it has to be a fun fight given the history that you guys have in the company. I appreciate the time. Best of luck, and yeah, looking forward to your fight.
Cool. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. And it's going to be a fun one. Keep an eye on it.